In a world asking the question, what if the movies that got delayed came out on time and they were different? That's the case in my universe. I'm Steven Shinder and you're listening to Delayed Replay, Season 5, airing every other Saturday, unless I change my mind. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, a Season 5 premiere of that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, Steven Shinder, and joining me once again, who's someone who's been on some previous episodes, it's Vinny Tangherlini. How's it going? You seemed surprised when I did that little intro there.
I was like, Season 5 premiere? I get to be the premiere. I'd have worn a better shirt.
Yeah, because better shirt for this audio medium. Yeah, people could definitely hear the different types of shirts.
Yeah, you can tell that I'm wearing just a tee, just a standard tee under the sweatshirt.
Yeah, and you're drinking tea as well.
Gotta keep it up.
Yeah, so we're talking about a movie that came out November 17th, so toward the end of last year for us, on Star Wars Holiday Special Day of all days, apparently. But this is that John Krasinski directed and written and produced movie, and starring, he's also in it, If, which is actually, it stands for something. It's IF, and it stands for Imaginary Friends. Yeah, before we get into the plot, have you ever had an imaginary friend, Vinny?
Yes.
I don't mean a friend who has gaslit you into thinking that they're your friend. I mean like a friend that you imagined in your mind, and they're
So yes, I don't remember this story, but it is infamous in my family. I guess when I was a kid, my brother was 3 years younger than me, and we got into a full fist fight, like punches, kicks, the whole works, over who was going to walk our imaginary dog.
Oh my gosh.
Didn't have a dog. And we got into a full fight, and when my mom broke up the fight, she was like, "What are you fighting about?" And we were like, well, we were trying to decide who gets to walk the dog. And she was like, "What dog?" And we were like, "Our imaginary dog."
What was the dog's name?
To be honest, I do not remember. I've only heard this story retold to me. I don't even remember.
Okay, so you don't know what breed it was, allegedly?
Probably Black Lab. I think we both had a long obsession with Black Labs when we were little kids. So, but yeah, I don't remember and I'm sure I had other imaginary friends, but I don't remember any of them, which is probably very fitting for the themes and tones of this movie.
I think the imaginary friends that I had when I was a kid, I would basically just copy and paste them from something I was watching. There's this cartoon on a few VHS tapes. It was a Canadian cartoon called Stickin' Around. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Oh, no, but the title is so funny.
Yeah, it's especially when you know that the characters are drawn kind of like stick figures. Like the animation style is very much like, it looks like a kid drew and colored this thing. And
I love that.
Yeah, so the running thing is that these kids, they imagine these scenarios that they're in as they're trying to solve the problem or whatever. One of the episodes involves a baseball game, and one of the main characters imagines like 5 different superhero alter egos because he collects comics in this episode. I think just in that episode, I don't know if it's mentioned in any other episodes, which is kind of weird now that I think about it, but I do remember like having those, pretending that those 5 superhero alter egos were my imaginary friends at one point.
I love that.
Yeah, and I also grew up watching Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, a very classic Cartoon Network show.
Loved that show. I was obsessed with that show.
Yeah, wasn't it weird how Blue was very friendly in the pilot and then in the series he's just a jerk?
Such a jerk. What? Imagine, is it Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy where they have Fred Burger, the
Yes.
imaginary friend?
I don't know if he's imaginary, but he was definitely a character.
He was okay. Maybe I've conflated it. I thought he was like an imaginary friend, but or like not everyone can see him. Now I'm just trying to think of famous imaginary friends.
Hmm.
But yeah, Foster's Home. Oh, what a pro show! Watch it, listeners. In our universe, it's still going.
Yeah, it's on season 20 now.
Yeah. It's the longest running TV show in our universe in the history. Grey's Anatomy ended a long time ago,
Yeah.
but Foster's Home continues.
Like there was a time where I thought the show ended, but then I checked it. I was like, wait, the show's still going on? What? And people aren't complaining about it like they do with The Simpsons? That's wild. But yeah, that's kind of like the plot of this movie where so when I saw the trailer for this movie in front of whatever other movie I was watching, the trailer begins with the question, what if? And then you see Ryan Reynolds, and so obnoxiously out loud in the theater to nobody, like not even any imaginary person, I was just saying, what if Deadpool? And then just left it at that. Like nobody laughed as I expected.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Not even the imaginary people laughed.
Yeah, like there were a few people in the theater, but I just, yeah. So yeah, this is a weird movie. So Ryan Reynolds plays a neighbor of this girl. He's referred to as the man upstairs, and the girl played by Kaylee Fleming, her name is B, which is short for Beatrice. What'd you think of how this movie began? Like how it got from like the ordinary into the more fantasy aspect?
I actually liked that about this movie. I felt like it was kind of a subtle start. I think they eased us into the world of imaginary friends pretty well. We get like a solid maybe 12 minutes of just normal life, introducing the normal characters, setting the seeds for stuff, but we don't really get hit with the immediate thing, which was kind of nice. It was cool to watch a movie that was just being a good movie and then be like, oh, it also has this whole like animated Pete's Dragon aspect to it. But to give it, a bit of time before that happened. I like that we eased into it a little bit. We met the characters and we got to see them interacting in real life before it kind of turns into a delightful animated comedic romp.
Yeah, the big purple one like really reminded me of I don't know if you ever saw this movie, but the DreamWorks movie, I think it's called Home. It's one with the
Yes.
purple alien.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my roommates in college was like, he didn't like that I liked that movie.
Isn't that also Steve Carell? Or did I make that up?
No, well, in this movie or in Home?
In Home.
In Home, that purple character is voiced by Jim Parsons,
Okay.
Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. Okay. Which is also in our universe still on.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. What did you think of the beginning, especially like as they started to introduce imaginary friends?
Yeah, so for a little bit, they were kind of going with a bear motif, right? Like they introduced like a sort of grizzly bear looking character and then some gummy bears. And you come to find out that one of these bears is actually, all these are imaginary friends who were abandoned by the people who imagined them and then grew out of them. And one of these bears is named after Winnie the Pooh because you know, like the original Winnie the Pooh is public domain now, so they figure they
Oh,
might as
right.
well do that.
Yep.
Another weird thing about this was they did not market this very well in the trailer, but this was also a musical. So, like, you do see a
Yeah.
little bit of dancing in the trailer, but there is a lot more musical genre in this than I was expecting just based on the marketing.
The music is by that dude that does all the Pixar music.
Oh,
Um,
Randy Newman, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, the songs was like, "You got an imaginary friend."
Yep, precisely. A real yeah.
Did you ever watch Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I did, yes.
So in that movie, Raccacoonie was voiced by Randy Newman. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh my god, I did not know that, but it makes sense now.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah, I mean, speaking of like voice cast, this is a stellar cast. It's probably the best part of the movie for me is how impressive. Nobody phones it in for a movie where you could easily phone it in, and nobody really does. Especially as we're getting to meet all these characters. You know, it would be so easy for Louis Gossett Jr. to just, you know, kind of, oh, I'm here, I'm famous. But I think everybody really does a great job.
yeah, you even got Steve Carell as the suspiciously named Blue. I kind of wonder if Cartoon Network wants to have a word about that, but um, yeah, like you got a great cast here. Jon Stewart as a robot. What'd you think of the design of the robot that he played?
Uh, it was not what I expected, but I mean, I think they really what was cool about it was they took it like how I would imagine a kid builds a robot in their head. And so they just said yes to everything. So he's got all sorts of stuff that makes no sense. He's big and small at the same time. He's disproportionate, but I think it's very like fitting for how a kid would build a robot in their brain, or like an imaginary robot of like, oh, and add this and add this and add this and add this, all these different pieces. He feels kind of built that way, where it's just sort of ad hoc, adding to it every time.
Yeah, and we come to learn that, you know, the kid who imagined this robot also imagined a laboratory in which it was built. And it's like, wait, hold up. What are the rules of this world? You know, like how much can a kid imagine that becomes real? Like that seems way too OP to imagine an entire location, you know?
Yeah, what was cool about that was it fit with the like kind of the of this. We've seen it in other movies, right? We've seen it in Inside Out. We've seen it in maybe just there, but we've seen some other movies that may only have come out in our universe, and so I can't talk about them. But but we've seen the idea of imaginary friends having a world kind of that they habitate, and I think like as overpowered as it is, I think it was cool to be like, yeah, they like imagined a place for this person, and when they forgot this robot, he still got to exist in his world, in his in his own little corner, which I liked. But it was weird that it was only him. Like we didn't really get to see any of the worlds of any of the other like people. Like there was that weird imaginary friend chef, and I felt like he should have just been in a Popeyes, but I don't know. It just didn't. They didn't pan out. I didn't feel like they fleshed out the worlds of some of the other ifs as they did with the robot.
Right. And speaking of Popeyes, where do you fall on the Popeyes versus Raising Cane's debate? That
Whoa, is that the debate? I would have said Popeyes versus KFC, but I guess in our universe there are no more KFCs. They've all turned into Raising Cane's. Is Cane's canceled or is Cane's okay? Did I make that up?
It's I don't know why that made me laugh so hard, but no, it's not canceled as far as I can tell. But
Okay.
I've just like heard maybe a couple people like debate Popeyes versus Raising Cane's in terms of quality. So like,
I think in terms of quality, it's probably Raising Cane's, but Popeyes is. My girlfriend's like, boo, that's wrong.
is she
I
in
think
the
Raising,
room?
she's just all the way to the other side of
Okay.
the house. Just heard me say that from afar, and it's like, what are you doing? But here's the thing: I think Cane's is probably better quality, but I love Popeyes. I will always choose Popeyes. Is it the best? Absolutely not. Is it better than KFC? I also don't think so. But I will always
Right.
pick Popeyes. There's something about it. Yeah, there's something about Popeyes that I will always choose. Maybe it's that like weird hot sauce that they give you, or that honey sauce that is not honey at all. Read the ingredients on Popeyes honey. There's no honey. There's no honey in it. It's just like a sugar syrup that they flavored to be honey. But there's
Wow.
no honey. It's not even honey. Yeah. So that's where I stand on the
All right.
great debate of Popeyes versus Cane's.
Yeah, I'm just Raising Cane's all around.
Yeah.
Like Popeyes, the times that I've gone, I felt like it was kind of satisfying, but not as much as I would have preferred. Like the nuggets, they feel so like there's not much to them, and like this, the biscuits, and it's not just a Popeyes thing, it's also a KFC thing. Like the biscuits feel so dry to me, they're like not my thing. So like with Raising Cane's, they give you that toast thing that's like,
Yeah, the toast.
I really like. And yeah, so I'm Team Cane's like all the way.
I think you have a bad Popeyes though, because I would say those biscuits are maybe the greatest thing this world has ever seen.
Well, in the last couple of years, I've been to one in Bakersfield and one in like Sylmar, like up in the
Yeah, you
valley.
just named like two of the worst places. Anyway, now that
Yeah.
we've gotten that out of the way.
Yeah, speaking of honey, these bears are trying to
Oh, yeah,
eat
these
this
bears.
this imaginary friend who's actually made of honey. What'd you think of the voice actor they got for this honey imaginary friend?
Yeah, quite the surprise to have Mel Brooks featured in this movie. But I love old people cameos, and I think we should have more of them.
Yeah, that's fair. Mel Brooks still kicking it in our
He's like
universe.
93
Yeah,
or something.
and that other
Like,
universe too, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in his 90s, like you said.
yeah.
So yeah, but I feel like this gag lasted kind of long. The bears chasing the honey guy and like just chasing him like all throughout the town and into the like this bar where they bump into a bartender. Like I don't know, it kind of felt like it went on for too long.
It felt excessive. Like it feels a little. I mean, I think the movie struggles with balance between whether it's like just kids and whether it has more to say. And I think this is one of those moments where I'm like, they needed an editor. Like this was so. I'm sure an 8-year-old would have found this like the most hilarious sequence of all time. But I think it lost a little bit of balance there as to whether it was needed or not. And I think it struggles throughout the movie of, is it like, oh, are we just goof troop all the time and here it is and feed me, or is it like, oh, this is a movie that has stuff to say.
Yeah, because I don't know if we said, but B and the man upstairs are like the only people who can see these imaginary friends.
Yeah.
Um, and so when the man upstairs goes to this bar and is like trying to catch the imaginary friends, like grab a hold of them, the people at the bar think that he's had like one too many. So it's kind of an easy joke right there. But
Right.
yeah.
Which again feels like for kids. It's like, oh, this is your perception of a bar, like, because you're 8.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
like the design of this bar looked more like the old school like inside of a McDonald's design where it's like all colorful and the shapes are like all playful and it's like, wait, I've been to bars. This is not what they look like.
I've never seen a bar with that many lights on.
Yeah.
Like,
But then we come to learn that this was an imagined bar and so this is sort of an oasis for like other imaginary friends who like in the back I guess like sort of play pool and have some drinks, which is really weird.
yeah. And there's just like the stuff starts to break down. You start to notice things like amongst the bottles of liquor, there's like jars of pickles. There's slowly you start to realize like, oh, this is intentionally a funky bar, not just a real bar, which again fits. What I liked about this is they like picked areas and then they made it feel like, oh, a kid made this place up. And so like, of course there's like a weird misplaced jar of pickles and like weird knickknacks and like gargoyle statues and all this weird stuff, which like no bar has ever had, but is fitting for like what this imagined version of a bar would be.
Yeah, for sure. And we also get like there's a magician mouse voiced by Sebastian Maniscalco. And this was like shortly before like the earliest version of Mickey Mouse became public domain, but it kind of felt like this was supposed to be like a little copyright safe version of like, you know, when Mickey has like the magician hat and whatever, like it kind of felt like a riff off of that, but like a copyright safe version, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, like they could play with that a little bit and not get any opposition or anything like that. Like just
Yeah, like the hat instead of like a point, like a triangle, like a cone, it's more of an octagon. So
yeah, instead of the Sorcerer Mickey style, it's got like a goofy. He's like almost identical in vibe, but not even close in look, except that he's a mouse,
right.
with similar color pattern. But they did. It's like all there, which again, like intentional or otherwise, feels so like a kid. Where it's like, oh yeah, this is Mickey Mouse, except for these very significant differences that I've imagined to make him my imaginary friend version of Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, it feels like the kids who imagined these things were very intentionally trying to riff off of the things that they grew up on, but make it unique to their own vision, which was very much the opposite of what I tried when I was a kid, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What'd you think of John Krasinski's character in this movie?
It's he's been doing this thing recently where he really tries to not be funny. Like, not that he's trying to be like dark or weird, but he's playing like a very not serious, but he's not doing the Jim thing.
Right, he's not looking at the camera.
Right, he's not like kind of playing like lovable everyman. Like, he's very straight in this, very straight man. He plays B's dad, who she is divorced, so she doesn't really see him all that often. And it's very like And not that I don't think John Krasinski's a good actor, but like anytime he does something that good, I'm like, whoa, yeah, dude, like it's there the whole time, and I just forget because usually he's like doing something goofy or like funny, and I don't know, like most of his recent stuff has been in line with this, so it's cool to see him like continue to stretch in that way, and it's like
Yeah,
one
stretch
team.
fantastically, one might say.
Oh my gosh, yes. For the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out in our universe.
Yeah. But that actually does lead to something that ends up being really sad, which is, since he's not around as much because, of the divorce, there are scenes where you see him and he's talking to B and, like being advice, being a good father and all that. But later in the movie, you realize, oh, that's actually an imaginary friend based on her dad. And like when you actually see her dad, like in real life later on, he seems very cold and emotionally distant. So like Krasinski's really acting for two here, and it's
Yeah.
basically like dad versus dad, and I was not expecting this at all.
This is like one of those moments where I'm like, how did we have Chase the Bears through a bar and then 45 minutes later have a like dad revealed to be not dad? Well, like it's such a good move and it's so weird.
Yeah. And also like the musical moments, like we mentioned, like, there's the dad song, like, oh, I am your dad, he's not your dad. Like you get them singing and they all sound like Randy Newman for some reason, which makes no damn sense whatsoever.
It's the downfall of a Randy Newman musical.
Yeah.
But we do get like the musical moments. There are some good ones. I mean, we get like kind of a nice duet between two of the imaginary friends.
Oh yeah, between Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character Blossom and Emily Blunt's character the Unicorn.
Yeah, I think. I mean, again, talk about powerhouses, but like they have a really touching duet because they're both imaginary friends ifs who have been forgotten, right? So they're and they don't know how to find some of the imaginary friends are like they find the man upstairs and so they can be remembered and be seen again, at least by him, but most of the imaginary friends haven't found their person, and so they're totally forgotten. They're just sort of living life, trying to figure out what to do next. So I thought that was really touching and a genuinely good song from old Mr. Newman. Which, yes, he's got it in him. He's written good songs before, but it was cool to see something that tasty.
Yeah. The way that Blossom, the flower imaginary friend was found was, B has this app on her phone called Flower Farming because she likes finding different kinds of flowers in all sorts of places. And I don't know how the app developers know all the flower locations. That seems really ridiculous. Again, it just seems so OP. But she ends up finding Blossom because of this app. And that's when you get the song where she's like, I'm just a flower lost in a field of lies. If I'm imaginary, can I really fly? You know that song?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that song. Definitely up for an Oscar in our universe. It is like a flower in a field of lies, though. Like, it hits hard and it hits home.
Yeah, especially because of society, like I think everyone knows what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
But yeah, all these imaginary friends, like, I mean, it gets so strange. Like you've got Octocat played by Aquafina, who is basically a cat with like 8 tentacles. And it's like, who comes up with this?
She eats a lot of pizza. That's kind of her shtick.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not. Yeah, she's there. There's a lot of like, we get to a point where it's just like dump, where they're just like, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, and they do a good job, and the people do it. I think it's just like it's the again, they're like, maybe this movie is only for kids, and so it's super short, like 82-minute runtime, which I think leads to like us not getting to flesh out some of the characters. I think there were lots of cutting room floor scenes with a lot of the side characters in exchange for kind of pushing the human storyline. I feel like we were just missing some stuff.
Yeah, because there's a moment where the man upstairs is talking to a buddy of his, at the at this restaurant called Chip Time, where I guess people just like sit down to eat some chips. And it seems like his buddy, who's played by Steve Carell here, like it feels like they had, Steve Carell voices Blue, but also plays this guy. It kind of feels like they had something more in mind for that character, and then later in production decided, well, it might be too confusing having this be a prominent character when there's an imaginary friend we could have this as the voice as. So let's just get rid of this friend who, for all we know, could provide some insightful stuff about like the relationship with the man upstairs. And like, yeah, he sort of just disappears, that character, like his friend at that restaurant.
I think they're kind of I think maybe they in a weird moment of subtlety, I think they're kind of implying that he's not real.
You think so?
Maybe, but it like it's left ambiguous. This movie is so weird because it makes
just
like
blew my mind.
It's weird because they make these moves that are like full masterful death strokes. And then they've got in the next scene, they've got like what's his face? Matt Damon and Christopher Maloney, who are also both in this movie, playing two characters, two imaginary friends, in like a chase sequence again, like a Scooby-Doo-esque total stunt ridiculous sequence. And it'll go from that to like super deep heart, everything.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's very weird.
What'd you think of the fact that for a huge chunk of this movie, they're calling Ryan Reynolds the man upstairs? Like, what'd you think when they finally explored like why he's called that instead of like an actual name?
Oh, all right. Well, here's the big spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Loyal fans of the podcast, because he's an imaginary person. And B has been making him up this whole time, or at least her version of him, right? Ryan Reynolds is a man upstairs who she has met, but the version of him that we've interacted with in this whole movie, that we've seen for the bulk of it, is all made up in B's mind. So when we actually see the real him at the end of the movie, I think we see the real him at the beginning of the movie, and I think then we see the real him kind of towards the end, like it's the real guy. And I think B is trying to see like how much of her imagined life for him is real. And he's pretty plain Jane. We don't get a lot of details about him, which is kind of again, this movie like hits hard and hits home.
Yeah. There was like a little hint that, B, like her mother would like, she appears very little in this, but what we gather from that relationship is, whenever B is having a bad day, her mother is like, just pray to the man upstairs. And so what we learn is that, so this is B's like she's gleamed that from that line, and so it's
Right.
almost like her imagined version of God, basically. But she's like not imagined it like how some people typically think of God. Like she imagines, oh, what if he's like a man who literally lives upstairs place in a building, and it also feels very Toy Story. Like there are some toys who know that they're toys, but Buzz doesn't know that he's a toy. So it's like, oh, I guess some imaginary friends know they're imaginary, and some just think that they lived the life that was imagined for them, which really
Yeah.
gets into like Blade Runner stuff right there. It gets so
Yeah.
existential and scary.
No, it gets real deep. In a tough way. Because it like, I don't know, at the end of it I was just questioning, like, okay, so who were the characters? Her dad was real but also not real.
Right.
The man upstairs was real but also not real. Like, it was like anytime
And also this movie is not real, and what we're describing is not real. What is real?
Shh, shh, shh. But yeah, like it really like inceptioned you by the end. You were like, wait, so what even happened? Like, what of this should I have cared about at all?
Yeah. Because like by the end of this, like B learns, like I'm trying to grapple with like what it is exactly that she learns. Like the two like older male figures that she thought she could trust were actually just imagined by her. So like, is that supposed to say she can't trust anyone, or that she has the power to trust in herself? Like I kind of feel like the movie was a bit muddy on the message it was trying to convey, you know?
Yeah, it felt like by the end it got a little like twist happy, where it was like, here's the twist, what's the meaning, I don't know, but here's the twist. Like, which, makes for a fun movie, but I don't know if I bought it by the end. I was a little tired of it.
Yeah, I was especially tired when they sort of over explained it via song, like the song that's called What Is Real. Like how'd that one go? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. It went like, what is real, what is real. There's like a funky line, and then it was what is real again. What is real? Yeah,
there's a little kazoo in there as well.
Yeah, it like, which honestly felt very Randy Newman, and of course is the song that he chooses to reprise in the credits, singing himself. Which honestly, I liked his version better than Bobby Moynihan's. Which he's like a cameo at the end, and it's weird. It's everything you expect it to be. Delightful and very strange.
Yeah. Also, we forgot to mention Fiona Shaw plays B's grandmother, who's like, she doesn't really get much to do, does she?
She's in maybe 45 seconds of this movie.
Like again, it feels like one of those things where some stuff got left on the cutting room floor, and it's like, what was originally supposed to go on here? Like, do they really think this would be more commercially successful if they play more on the kid angle? Like, what went on here?
Not 100% sure. Like, it feels a little loose. Like they played fast and loose with a lot of strong cast people and not a lot of plot.
Yeah, I feel like there have definitely been movies like that where they have a really strong cast, but then the results just end up being lackluster somehow. Again, like in the end, like I know they were trying to go for like some heartwarming thing, but it was like this weird moment at the end where B looks at both of her dads and the man upstairs and at all the imaginary friends who, we forgot to mention, like they actually were able to find a home for all of these friends. So you want to tell the audience about that home?
Oh yeah, it's it is like a massive. It feels very Foster's Home for imaginary friends. It's like a massive kind of boarding house, but it's run by, or like all sort of based on Terry Pratchett Discworld stuff. Like each room
it's on top of a giant turtle.
Yeah, and each room has like a different famous Discworld theme. So there's like the kind of the guards, the watch has its own sort of room, and some of the imaginary friends are drawn to that. There's like the witches, and some of the imaginary friends are drawn to that. Like they find like a really, from the mind of Terry Pratchett, like a really cool place for them at the end, which is nice. Like, and I think B is able to let go of some of her friends that way, and I think that helps her break some of the illusions, you know, that she has about her dad or the man upstairs. She's able to think more about them realistically than in the imaginary world that she's creating.
Yeah. And like at the end, she sort of befriends a real friend, you know, one of her classmates who showed up like earlier in the movie, but they don't draw too much attention to him. But he introduces himself at the end and he's like, "Hi, I'm Benjamin." And it seems like they're going to be good, real friends. But by this point, because of all the twists, I'm like, is he real? Like, I'm not sure I trust this anymore.
I'm not sure if it's the final twist, like, and she created another character. Like,
Yeah, I was almost like expecting like the Saint Elsewhere ending where it zooms out, it's all in the kid's head or whatever.
yeah, like it would have worked if they'd done that.
But they probably left that on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
They thought this would be too heady for a kids movie. It would leave them feeling disillusioned and whatnot.
Yes.
Maybe much like the ending of Time Bandits. You ever see Time Bandits?
Oh my god, yeah, it just ends.
The ending of that like, is so weird.
His parents died. It just ends. Spoiler alert for Time Bandits. His parents are like microwaved to death. They explode. And he goes, "Mom? Dad?" And the movie ends. It just ends there.
I think it even like zooms up like out of the world and into outer space.
And it's like, what is happening?
What even is that movie?
That movie's an acid trip in all universes.
It came out on my birthday, but long before I was born.
Oh, nuts. That's wild.
So yeah, like I said, there was that moment where she looks at both her dads and the man upstairs and kind of smiles as if she is so sure of herself now, but it's so not fleshed out that I'm like, I don't know what all this means in the end, like what's gonna happen with the dads and with the man upstairs. Like it kind of seems like there will be like the music and the mood of the scene feels like it's all gonna be a happy ending somehow, but they didn't. It felt like in favor of going with the 82-minute runtime, it was like they decided not to spend too much time on a denouement when really that would have been very much appreciated by viewers like us.
This movie definitely ends and they make it feel like an ending, but it does not conclude. There's no like actual resolution to most of the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like very few people could get away with that. You know, maybe David Lynch, but John Krasinski or the studio that forced John Krasinski's hand. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah. Who made this movie?
I think this was Paramount. Yeah, it was distributed by Paramount. Production company, Sunday Night Productions, Maximum Effort. Yeah.
Paramount just trying to force its way in.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to say about this movie before we go into final thoughts?
Honestly, I still recommend it. Dancing penguins and all. Like it. If nothing else, It makes you laugh. It makes you cry. You think about it. And it's pure chaos. If you want to see pure chaos in a movie, sign up for If. It's great.
All right. So, what would your final, like, I guess you already said final thoughts. So, what would your score out of 10 be for this? And what would your unit of measurement be for that score?
Yeah, I would give it, I think, 4.5 chip times out of 10. Chip time, it's funny. It is the most child concept. Oh yeah, it's a restaurant where you eat chips. Yeah. Chip time. It's great. That's one of the top 5 parts of the movie. Yeah, I give it 4.5. It's delightful. It's silly. It's goofy. It tries way too hard. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be Oscar worthy or just for a bunch of kids with whoopee cushions, and I don't think it knows either. Like, I think it oscillates between the two, and needed to pick a lane. But it's the cast is stellar. There's not a single performance in this that is not fun and enjoyable to watch or listen to. My only critiques are that the plot is a disaster. But otherwise, like, that's a pretty hefty one. But like, everything is done with absolute joy. Everyone commits to this movie 110%, even if maybe some of those performances are truly under a minute. I cannot imagine shorter performances from certain actors.
Imagine.
But it's but yeah, it's still really fun. It's still really goofy. It's worth the watch. Maybe just wait for Paramount Plus.
Yeah. Yeah, for my score, I think I'm gonna go higher, and I know people are gonna think this is like way too high for this movie, but it's my gut feeling, and I'm going with it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 5 out of 10 kazoos.
Oh my god, the kazoo!
Yeah, and also fitting because we're in season 5 of this podcast, but. Yeah, it feels like a half-baked movie. Like there were probably more ingredients in place and they decided to just get rid of some of them. And it's like, ultimately, I don't know what this movie wants to be, what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
Some of the music felt, very derivative in places. Some of it felt like it was from Randy Newman's other works. I didn't think his rendition of Imagine toward the second half of the credits was very good, to be honest.
Imagine that no people.
Yeah.
It's a little Louis Armstrong. It's a little Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
ZZ, if you try. That's a little better.
Yeah. Yeah, so overall, like, yeah, it could have been much better. But I would still recommend it if people, it's one of those movies where people can gather around and maybe make a drinking game, take some shots responsibly, of course, like while watching it. Like maybe one whenever you realize, oh, this character is imaginary. Oh, wait, this person I thought was real is imaginary. All of whenever
you'll get wasted. If you drink every time there's a twist.
Yeah, so maybe just one sip at a time, because like we don't want to be responsible for people ending up in the hospital.
Yeah, we don't condone the drinking game.
Right, yeah.
I also
use
think
root beer.
Yeah. I think kids will love it. So if you're out there with kids, I think it's maybe because there's no plot, it's all fun and games, and then emotion, and then all fun and games again. It's like, it is the life of a kid. And so I think if you've got kids that are looking for a fun movie, this is the right one.
Yeah, I can see that. Kids before they truly develop actual taste.
Yeah.
I
mean, yeah.
Like yes. There are some movies where if once in a while I'll critique a movie and then someone will be like, well, I enjoyed watching it with my kid and they loved it and that's all that matters. And then I feel kind of bad for critiquing it, and it's like, what am I supposed to say now? Like, how am I supposed to respond, Yeah.
If you need 82 minutes of your kid watching a movie, Here it is, baby. 82 minutes. You can do something else while your kid watches this movie.
Yeah.
Then take it.
Yeah, play that pinball computer game for like the 90s or early 2000s
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. For Windows XP.
Yeah. Oh, that was a nice Randy Newman impression there.
Oh, yeah. It gets worse. I can't find it.
All right, well, I guess I'll do it. Thanks for joining me again, Vinny. Is there anything you want to plug, like social media or any improv stuff you're involved with, or?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me Vinny Tangherlini on Facebook and Insta. No X for me. Although in our universe, it's still Twitter. And Bill Gates owns it, which is the same.
Yeah. And I just call it X in the plug for like the lulz, you know?
Yeah, just for the walls.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're in the universe that mostly listens to this, and you want to go see that alternate reality version of me in Chicago, do a lot of stuff with Malarkey Comedy and Comedy Sports, which is in downtown Chicago. Come check us out. And I occasionally post funny photos on Instagram. Like once a year. So be looking out for that post. It's a new year. I'm due for a post, so be looking for it. May come early.
Yeah. I mean, on Instagram, the limit to like, you can, for one post, you can only post up to 10 pictures at a time. Like,
yeah,
that kind of kills it for me. Like at the end of last year, for all the concerts that I went to, I finally got around to posting my photo album of when I went to these concerts of the past year, because I was so bad at posting them like right after they happened. But I posted the photo album on my Facebook, and for my Instagram and other places, I was like, I have way too much photos to post on this platform. Here's a screenshot of the Facebook photo album where you can find all of that.
It's a screenshot of the album.
Yeah, the top half is just a description and the bottom half is just a few photos, I think.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. All right, so that'll do it. And the next episode will be about Imaginary, that horror movie about some imaginary teddy bear friend or something.
Whoa.
Yeah, so a bit of a theme, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but without further delay, have a good day. All right, now for the plugs, you can follow me at Steven Shinder on various social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever it is in your universe, Threads, also Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook, and I'll also link my Letterboxd and Threads accounts, which you can find in the show notes. I'm also on Yesshift, a podcast I do with my dad, and if you follow Drum Talk TV, which I do with my dad as well, check out the virtual concert series that we've started, beginning with the Kinky Wizards, part of that virtual concert being on our social media and the rest of it being on the Drum Talk TV Brilliance website. And if you want to gosh, I'm rusty at this. On Yesshift, we've talked about musicians and interviewed musicians, and we'll keep doing that, so check that out. And you can also email this podcast, Delayed Replay, via delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, because why not? Yeah, so you can also, I think that's pretty much everything. The other me from that other universe doesn't really have much to say or review, but let's see what he has to say and then we'll call it a day. Hey everybody, so it might have been nice to hold off on the what if review for this episode, but One thing I'll add, non-spoiler, for Marvel's What If, is that I quite like how there's a certain thread from season 2 of What If that sort of you can draw a connection to the recent Marvel show Echo, which I thought the show was fine overall. I like that it's bringing in more diversity, but I can't help wondering that maybe lots of people went in for Kingpin more than anything, and like that was the only bit of marketing that I saw, and it gets me excited for Daredevil Born Again, but I do wonder, like, will Echo the character stick in people's minds and be remembered very well and utilized in future things? There were a couple, like there was a throwback thing at the beginning of one of the episodes that cinematically I thought was really interesting. But yeah, I didn't think it was bad. It was just fine overall to me. The pacing was kind of weird in that I could feel some of the slow pacing, but then the episode would be over before I knew it. And anyway, it's 5 episodes, not too much of a commitment. And there were also some images that came out for What If Season 3, promo images. And one of them, front and center, shows Sam Wilson, the new Captain America. It's been really weird that they haven't been able to work him into any Marvel project since Falcon and Winter Soldier ended in 2020. Or actually, maybe it was 2021, but it just feels like so long ago. But yeah, I feel like they sort of indirectly addressed those concerns, showed the image and didn't really say much or anything at all, from at least not that I saw, about people's concerns. But nice to see that he'll be back, at least in that show. And yeah, just hope we get more of Sam Wilson, Captain America in the MCU going forward. Speaking of Disney Plus, a friend got me to start watching the Percy Jackson series, and so far way better than the movies, which I decided to watch just for the heck of it. Like, those are terrible, but the show, like, first couple episodes, pretty solid. So I might have more thoughts on that once I get caught up and once it's finished, perhaps. And yeah, I'm looking forward to some things coming out this year in this universe where things got delayed. You can actually check out my friend's podcast, IPC, Intergalactic Peace Coalition, where people submitted their top 5 most anticipated films of the year, and so I submitted a list, and it was a lot of fun, and they read it and talked about the top 5s, and yeah, really cool stuff. So I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, Star Wars Bad Batch trailer, it looks pretty good. I was worried that they might contradict a certain Clone Wars novel, but they said that there are no spoilers, but they'll keep it, like, take it into account, so that sort of relieves my worries. The Avatar live action Last Airbender series, I'm not sure what to make of it. I miss the vibrant colors of the animated show. There was only a hint of the humor, but even then it's more humor than the film that is much reviled. But yeah, I don't know yet if this will be substantially better than the film. It's still kind of hard to tell. So for that one, I might wait until I hear from people I trust. But yeah, I'm very interested to see how things play out this year. And yeah, keep listening to Delayed Replay. And without further delay, have a good day.